Welcome to this demo. My name is Duncan Kufar, I'm Microsoft Certified Azure Solutions Architect Expert. I have been around since disk operating system and floppy disks and previously certified as Microsoft Systems Engineer, ITIL-V1, AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate etc. I'm here to show you how to unlock the value of free Hyper-V and Windows Admin Center in building resilient storage on commodity hardware and Microsoft Azure Cloud resources. Stay tuned and remember, there is no better value in storage and office productivity tool than Office 365. Nothing in the industry comes close to that value with bundled storage, office productivity, and collaboration tools. Bare Metal Hypervisor Hyper-V 2019 and Windows Admin Center is yet another value to consider for your on-demand file sharing, DR, HA and cloud integration and migration. Feel free to follow along, comment and subscribe. We are going to discuss how to leverage Microsoft free Bare Metal Hypervisor Hyper-V 2019 and Windows Admin Center to engineer simple resilient storage and compute environment on commodity hardware. We will demo how to integrate Azure services like Monitor, Backup, File Sync, and Security Center. We will configure and demo cost-effective disaster recovery, DR, and high availability, HA, solution based on Hyper-V and Windows Admin Center. This proof of concept will not only show you how to effectively leverage a well-rounded Microsoft Azure Cloud services and technologies, but also prepare you for potential, eventual migration to Azure Cloud. To engineer simple resilient storage and compute environment, we will set up Microsoft Windows Hyper-V 2019 on commodity hardware physical computer. Use PowerShell to download and install Windows Admin Center. Use Hyper-V 2019 and Windows Admin Center to set up highly available storage and compute environment. Use Windows Admin Center to integrate with Azure services, monitoring, file sync, backup, security center. And configure disaster recovery, DR, using Microsoft Azure Cloud services. Key requirements include decent internet access bandwidth, say 100 megabits per second. Azure subscription account. For free Azure subscription, find links on resource section of this video. Physical computer that meets minimum requirements for Hyper-V 2019 installation. USB drive with at least 8 GB or more capacity. How to download Hyper-V? Go to Microsoft Evaluation Center website to download Hyper-V Server 2019. Find download link on resource section of this video. You will need to complete registration form to download the product ISO image. Use Rufus or Etcher to flash OS images to USB drives. Create bootable Hyper-V Server 2019 USB OS installation media, or use DVD burner to create OS installation media suitable for your computer. How to create USB installation media? Use Rufus or Etcher to flash OS images to USB drives. Download links for Rufus or Etcher and instructions on how to create bootable Windows Server 2019 USB media using Rufus are on resource section of this video. Note that you may have to adjust your computer default BIOS/UEFI settings to enable external USB device boot options. How to set up Hyper-V? Insert bootable or mount OS installation media on your physical computer. Go to BIOS Setup and enable external media boot options, invoke boot menu and select boot media accordingly. Boot the server to the media and go through the setup wizard to complete the installation. Find Hyper-V 2019 installation steps demo on the following slides using computer with mounted ISO media like HP ILO or Dell IDRAC virtual media, etc. Boot your physical computer from operating system installation media. Click Next, followed by Install Now on the installation wizard to start the setup process. Accept license terms. Then click Next. Click Custom Install the new version of Hyper-V Server. Select disk drive for installation and click Next. Installation will go through a series of step and reboots to complete the process. Be patient and allow the installation to complete. Note that the setup will reboot the server at least 3 times to complete the process, and on each reboot you will be prompted to hit any key to boot from the external boot media. Please and careful not to hit any key except for the initial boot for the onset of installation, otherwise you will have restart your installation again. You will be prompted to set up server administrator's credentials. Type what would be local server administrator's password and confirm it. Press enter to continue and log into the server. Press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to unlock the server and enter credentials to sign on to the server. Use ipconfig command line utility to identify IP address of the server. You can bring CMD Windows to focus by clicking on the black window behind the blue sconfig console. If you don't have automatic IP configuration, DHCP service on your network, you will have to configure network manually. Type sconfig to bring to focus server configuration utility. Select option 7 then press enter. Type letter E, then press enter. Type number 2 then press enter and click OK or press enter to complete enabling remote desktop version that allow older RDP clients to connect. Type 2 to enter computer name menu and type new computer name WH1 for our lab Hyper-V host server 1. Click yes or press enter to restart the computer and apply the changes. After reboot you can use server IP or computer name to RDP to the server. After rename and restart, sign on to the server and select option 6 followed by letter R, to download and install recommended updates for security and bugs fixes. Connect to Hyper-V server using remote desktop protocol. Then start PowerShell console by typing PowerShell on command prompt console, CMD, then press enter key. Download and install Windows Admin Center using PowerShell instructions on the slide. After connect to Hyper-V server using remote desktop protocol, start PowerShell. And download and install Windows Admin Center. Notice from the list of installed programs Windows Admin Center is missing. Download and install Windows Admin Center using PowerShell as demonstrated here. Allow for download to complete. Notice on our PowerShell instructions we are downloading the installation file to download folder. When the download complete, change directory to downloads folder. Start installation using MSI exec utility as demonstrated here. Notice we are telling the installer program to create install log file and generated and use self-signed certificate that we be used for secure HTTPS connection to the server. Notice the generated installation log file. Once the installation is done you can list directory contents and see the resulting installation log file. You can also check the installation status by reviewing contents of installation log. Notice installation success or error status, 0 on the last 20 entries of the log file. Start web browser HTTPS protocol connection to Hyper-V server using computer name or IP address. On the warning, click Advance and continue to site. Enter credentials and click OK to sign in to Windows Admin Center. Click on Gateway link to access management components of the server. On Overview Dashboard, note that you can restart, shut down, disable disk metric and edit computer ID. Gather some basic server telemetries like CPU, memory, network, and disk performance. Click Azure Hybrid Services to discover Azure Service where on-premises servers meet the cloud. This is where you can begin enhancement of your existing servers and workloads with new ways to protect, monitor, update, backup, connect, and sync with Azure Hybrid Services after registering your Windows Admin Center and grant required access to your Azure subscription. Click Azure Backup. Here we will set up Azure Backup that will protect your Windows server from corruptions, attacks, or disasters by backing up your server directly to Microsoft Azure. Click Azure File Sync. This will enable you to sync your file server with Azure, caching frequently accessed files for speedy local access. With cloud-based backup and fast disaster recovery, managing your file server just became simpler. Just imagine what we have thus far: robust backup and file on demand backed by Microsoft Azure Cloud using freely available tools, Hyper-V and Windows Admin Center. Just think about potential savings in licensing and complexity when compared this option to offering by others. Let hear your comments about comparison in value. Click Azure Monitor. This service will facilitate monitoring and alerts with Azure Monitor by collect events and performance counters for analysis and reporting, take action when a particular condition is detected, and receive notifications via email, etc. Click Azure Security Center. Azure Security Center provides unified security management and advanced threat protection across hybrid cloud workloads. Trial available unless not previously applied on the associated subscription and workspace. As you can see, Windows Admin Center will facilitate your server administration on certificates, devices, events, file and file sharing, firewall, installed apps, local users and groups, network, performance monitor, PowerShell, processes, registry, remote desktop, roles and features, schedule tasks, services, storage, updates, virtual machines, virtual networks, and mostly important, easy integration with Azure Cloud services. If you are yet to do so, make Windows Admin Center your one-stop shop for all your Windows Server administration and Linux guest VMs on Hyper-V host. You will never look back. That is topic for another time. This is the best value anyone should pay attention, as we are going to show how easy it is to integrate your on-premises server with cloud and save on resource and pain of engineering resilient data center solution. Then we will demonstrate how easy it is to sync your on-premises Windows file shares with cloud storage using Azure File Sync services. We will also show you how to easily monitor and alerting all your on-premises and cloud systems by using Azure Monitor service. We will show you how to secure your servers with Azure Security Center, which provide unified security management and advanced threat protection across your integrated workloads. Start web browser and open HTTPS connection to Hyper-V host server. Click Settings, then Azure to open Register with Azure page. Click Register to launch Get Started with Azure in Windows Admin Center registration wizard. Click Copy to copy device authentication code. Click Enter the code link and follow prompt menus to complete WAC registration. Scroll down and click Connect. Then click Sign in to complete registration by consenting to Enterprise Application Registration. Click Accept to grant required directory permissions to WAC. You can verify Azure AD device registration by clicking on Gateway link. Click Settings. Click Azure to open Azure page and display registration information. Notice associated Azure AD App ID and Directory ID. Click Windows Admin Center to return to the main menu. Click Gateway. Click Azure Hybrid Services. Remember, Azure registration is key to discover Azure services. Click Discover Azure Services. Click Setup to open Setting Up Host with Azure Site Recovery Wizard. Select Subscription to use from the drop-down menu if you have more than one. Type name of resource group or select existing one from the list if any as desired for the task. After selecting subscription, type resource group name for use. Type Recovery Service Vault name. And select location for the Recovery Vault service, in this demo East US. Then click Setup button. Note that it may take up to 15 minutes for Recovery Vault and associated agent for Hyper-V host to install. For installation status, click Notification. You can also sign in to your subscription to see the created resource group and Recovery Service Vault. Notice installed apps that are component of Azure Recovery Service Vault that include Microsoft Azure Recovery Service Agent, update for Mars Agent and Microsoft Azure Site Recovery Provider that gets deployed on your Hyper-V host server. Go to Azure Portal. Click on All Resources link. Click on Recovery Vault link to open Recovery Service Vault overview page. Notice the various things you can do with the Vault. Take time to read what is new to familiarize yourself with capabilities of Recovery Service Vaults. Click on Activity Log to review operations initiated from Windows Admin Center from Create Vaults to get extended info. Switch to Windows Admin Center. Notice notification details about setting up host with Azure Site Recovery, VM protection setup in progress. You need to define replication policy and associate it with your Hyper-V site. On Site Recovery Infrastructure Overview page. Scroll down to Hyper-V sites. Click on Replication Policies. Notice we have Create Replication Policy and associate it with our Hyper-V site. The policy define replication frequency and recovery point retention, etc. Configure the settings as per your business requirements. Click plus replication policy to create new replication policy. Provide name, source frequency, etc. as needed, then click OK to save settings. Once creation is successful, you can open the policy and associate it with your Hyper-V site, then click OK to save. After this, you are ready to replicate Hyper-V VM guests. When setup complete, you should see Azure Site Recovery listed under Azure Hybrid Services. Click Virtual Machines. Put a check mark on VM to manage. Click Manage and select Replicate using Azure Site Recovery. With Create New Radio button selected, type the name of storage account that will be created and used to replicate your VM. Then click Protect VM. This will take time to complete depending on size of your VM and bandwidth of your network. When replication is done, you will have ready to deploy copy of our virtual machine on a robust, highly available Microsoft Azure Cloud. Note that to fail over eventual replicated VMs, you have to set up the needed Azure network as described on the following slide. Go to Virtual Network. Click New to create virtual network for use with test failover and eventual failover. Select Subscription, Resource Group for the virtual network. Type name and select region for the virtual network. Then click Review and Create to create the virtual network. Once deployment is done, you can click Go to Resource to see the virtual network. When replication is done, you should see Protected Status on Disaster Recovery VM column. Click on VM to open VM properties, then click View in Azure to see status in Azure. Notice Replication Healthy Status. Click on VM name to open Azure Recovery Services Replication Protected Item Settings menu blade. Notice Protected VM details and status, and list of action items to test failover and eventual failover as needed. Click on Test Failover. Click on Virtual Machine link. Notice there is no any VM. On Test Failover blade, select Failover direction from Chose a recovery point and Azure Virtual Network. This is the virtual network where test failover VM will connect to. Click OK to initiate test failover process. You can monitor failover status from notification bell. Click All Resources link. Notice VM and its component resources start to appear on the list of resources. After failover is done, VM is started. Click on Virtual Machine link to see VM status. Notice running status of test failover VM. Notice the VM has private IP, therefore we will need VPN to VNet to access it, or associate its network interface with public IP to access it over the Internet. On Azure VM Overview page, click Networking. Click Network Interface link to open Network Interface Blade. Click IP Configuration. Click Network Interface to open IP Address Configuration Blade. Notice IP Address Deassociate setting. Click Associate under Public IP and select Public IP Resource or create new one to use for enabling public IP on VM. If you don't have public IP to use, click Create New and provide name, SKU, and assignment, then click OK to save the changes before you can select your newly created public IP. Click Save. Notice Save status on notification bell. You can see more event on the activity log. Once Save Network Interface is done, click on Virtual Machine. Click on the Failover Test VM link to open VM Overview page. Take notice of the assigned public IP. Click on Connect. We will use SSH since this is a Linux VM. Notice the SSH connection command username at assigned public IP. Click Boot Diagnostic to view recent image of VM desktop. Notice VM is at login prompt. Click Overview link. Click Connect SSH. Copy at assigned public IP. We will use PowerShell console as SSH client. Open PowerShell console and establish SSH connection to test failover VM using credentials of user on VM and public IP of the test VM. Type yes to the prompt to continue connecting. Provide password associated with the SSH user ID to login on your test failover VM. Use ll command to list files on user's home directory. Notice list of files on the VM login user home folder and compare to the on-prem VM. Exit from test failover VM. Login to on-premise VM. We log out from Azure Failover Test VM and log into on-prem VM, the original source of the protected Hyper-V VM. Since we have name resolution on on-premise network, we use its computer name for connection and display the list of file for comparison with the replicated VM. Notice list of files that is the same as that of replicated VM. Notice how we have a replica of our protected on-premises VM. This demonstrates how easy it is to protect out critical business application using Azure Site Recovery Vault. We have just used commodity hardware to configure resilience to our infrastructure using free Hyper-V, Windows Admin Center and Azure subscription. On the subsequent video we will explore other Azure hybrid services that are crucial for your cost-effective and value storage and compute initiative. As you can see, this is the easiest possible way to add resilience to your on-premises workloads and extend life of commodity hardware that you have Azure insurance ready to deploy. Just failover and continue your mission-critical business application as needed. Now we have seen failover test in action, we need to clean up test failover resources. Go to Azure portal, click on All Resources. Click on Recovery Service Vault. Click on Replicated Items link. Notice Cleanup Test Failover status on VM tested earlier for failover. Click on Cleanup Test Failover link for test failover activities details. Click on the three dots menu and select Cleanup Failover from the pop-up menu. Provide notes or comments for the record on the Notes text box. Put a check mark on Testing is complete. Delete Test Failover VM. Click OK to initiate cleanup. Click All Resources. Notice VM-specific resources will disappear with cleanup operation. Take note of VM and its network interface. Click More Event in the activity log to see events details. Click on All Resources link. When cleanup the test VM is done, you will see Successful Cleanup status message. Click on Virtual Machine link, notice VM no longer exist. Click on All Resources to confirm resource cleanup. We have seen and demonstrated how Azure Recovery Service Vault is storage entity in Azure that houses data copies or configuration information for virtual machines, workloads, servers, or workstations, in addition to facilitate data backup of various Azure services such as IaaS VMS and Azure SQL databases, and provide easy means and way to organize your backup data, while minimizing and simplify management overhead. Azure File Sync is another service that will centralize organizations' file shares in Azure Files. Provide flexibility, performance, and compatibility of an on-premises file server. Transforms Windows Server machines into a quick cache of your Azure file share. Use any protocol that's available on Windows Server to access your data locally, including SMB, Network File System, NFS, and File Transfer Protocol Service, FTPS. Shares file in the cloud, without being responsible for managing the overhead of a physical server. Open Windows Admin Center. Click WS1 to open properties of guest VM. WS1 that will be used to demonstrate how easy it is to set up Azure File Sync service on Hyper-V Virtual Machine Guest. We will use Windows Admin Center to configure it on Azure File Sync service and be able to replicate out files to Microsoft Azure Cloud and share them from there. VMWS1 has 2 disks and volumes with shared folders with files that will be replicated to Azure File Sync. Click on File and File Sharing link. Click on Data S, Drive. Click on File Share to see the list of file shares on the Share folder. Note that you can access the shared folder and files through Universal Naming Convention, UNC, path. On Windows Admin Center, click on VM you want to set up Azure File Sync. Click Azure File Sync. Click Setup to launch Azure File Sync Wizard. Go to Azure Portal. Click Resource Groups link to open list of resource groups. Click on resource group that you will use to set up Azure File Sync resource. Click Add and type File Sync on new text box field. Select Azure File Sync and click Create. Type name for the storage sync service name. Select the region. Click Review and Create. Click Create. Once deployment is done, switch back to Windows Admin Center to configure Azure File Sync on VM Guest. Select Use Existing Resource Group and Storage Sync Service, selecting appropriate values as created on Azure Portal. Click Setup. Allow time for setup to complete. Notice various steps in Azure File Sync setup. When setup is done, the next step is configure Sync a folder to finish setting up Azure File Sync. Click Close. Click Azure File Sync registered to link. Click plus sign to add and create sync group. We will use this group to set up sync folder. Switch back to Windows Admin Center. Click Sync a folder tab. Click Browse and locate and select the folder you want to sync. Click Use Existing Radio button and select the sync group file share to sync. Click Set up Sync. Allow time for sync process to complete. Click Sync Group Name to examine setup progress. Notice 0 cloud and server endpoints. When setup is done, you will see server endpoints with list of configured endpoints. Notice installed apps on the VM include the storage sync agent. When the sync is done, you will see a copy of synced folder contents in Azure. Jump back to the file sync source. You can clearly see we have the same set of files. Either set can be mapped and used by any server message block client with access to the share. Azure Backup will simplify data protection with its built-in management at scale. This is cost-effective, secure, easy to use, scalable based on your backup storage needs with centralized management interface that makes it easy to define backup policies and protect a wide range of enterprise workloads, including Azure Virtual Machines, SQL and SAP databases, and Azure File Shares. Capabilities of Azure Backup and features include Azure and on-premises backup, application consistency, secure backup storage and cloud backup management of backup infrastructure and items. On Windows Admin Center, click Azure Backup. Click Set up Azure Backup. On Step 2, Set up Azure Backup. Click Show Details. Select Subscription for use with Azure Backup. Select Vault, Resource Group, and Location for the backup task. Select the item and drives you want to backup and schedule accordingly. Type the passphrase for encrypting your backup. This is very important as it not only protect your backup but make it impossible to be compromised by ransomware. Click Apply. Allow time for backup setup to complete. Note that the process will set up backup agent, followed by registering Azure Backup Agent. Go to Azure Portal. Click on Recovery Service Vault. Click Backup Items. Notice 0 backup items at the moment while setup is underway. Switch back to Windows Admin Center. Following registering Azure Backup Agent is setting files and folders backup policy. Then loading protected items. Notice Azure Backup Overview page with 0 jobs and no recovery point, since this is new backup configuration. Click Backup now to manually initiate backup process. Switch to Azure Portal. Click Refresh. Note 1 backup items count under Azure Backup Agent. Click on Backup Item. Switch back to Windows Admin Center. Notice Azure Backup job in progress. Click Installed Apps. Notice Microsoft Azure Recovery Service Agent and its update. When backup is done, you will see backup has completed successful message. Click Azure Backup. Notice 1 completed jobs and recovery points. This is how easy to set up Azure Backup. Switch to Azure Portal. Click Azure Backup Agent. Notice last backup time. Click under Backup Item to open properties of selected backup item. Azure Monitor is another resource that its components can easily be configured from Windows Admin Center. The service is important in collecting, analyzing, and acting on telemetry data from your Azure and on-premises environments. Help to maximize performance and availability of your applications and proactively identify problems in seconds. Azure Monitor is key in monitoring your applications, infrastructure, and network, as it provides visibility to your environment that can easily be integrated with other resources like Azure Automation to right-size your capacity on demand in a most cost-effective way. Notice how application, OS, and Azure resources logs and metrics are used to provide insights, visualization, analysis, and necessary response when integrated with Azure Automation, etc. Go to Windows Admin Center and click on Azure Monitor. Then click Setup. Select Subscription and Resource Group for setting up Log Analytic Workspace for Azure Monitor Resource. Type name for Log Analytic Workspace to use. Select Workspace Region. Selected region is important because not all Azure services are available on all regions. For example, at creation of this presentation, Azure Update Service is not available on all regions. Then click Setup. Allow time for Log Analytic Workspace creation to complete. Note that this resource will provide foundation for setting up Azure Monitor, Update Management, and Security Center aspects of your Azure resources. Now we have Log Analytic Workspace in place, we can go to Alert and Action to set up alerts as needed. Click Edit Alert Rule. You can add alert action by providing action group name and email of alert recipient. Click Save. Click Save. Click Configure Monitoring and Alerts from Azure Portal. Note that you can create alert rules based on collected telemetries on this Log Analytic Workspace. Click Add New Alert Rule. Specify scope, condition, actions, alert rule details for the alert rule based on your needs. This provide ways to monitor your infrastructure and enable automation to either react to conditions for scaling up or down as needed. Imagine thing you can achieve by integrate your on-premise environment with Azure Cloud simply by using Hyper-V and Windows Admin Center. Switching back to Windows Admin Center. Click on Installed Apps. Notice Installed Microsoft Monitoring Agent. This agent is responsible for collecting telemetries and ship them to linked log analytic workspace for analysis and action trigger by associated rule sets thresholds. So why Azure Monitor Agent? This agent will help to collect guest logs and metrics from any machine in Azure, in other clouds, or on premises. Send data to Azure Monitor Logs and Azure Monitor Metrics for analysis with Azure Monitor. Send data to Azure Storage for archiving. Send data to third-party tools using Azure Event Hubs. Manage the security of your machines using Azure Security Center or Azure Sentinel. Azure Security Center is a unified infrastructure security management system that strengthens the security posture of your data centers, and provides advanced threat protection across your hybrid workloads in the cloud, whether they're in Azure or not, as well as on premises. Keeping your resources safe is a joint effort between your cloud provider, Azure, and you, the customer. You have to make sure your workloads are secure as you move to the cloud, and at the same time, when you move to IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service, there is more customer responsibility than there was in PaaS, Platform as a Service, and SaaS, Software as a Service. Azure Security Center provides you the tools needed to harden your network, secure your services and make sure you're on top of your security posture. Get secure faster by sign up for 30-day free trial to protect against threats and strengthen security posture. To demonstrate Azure Security Center, open Windows Admin Center. Click Azure Security Center. Click Sign into Azure and follow the wizard to complete registration and granting necessary permission to the directory and tenant. When prompted for permission requests review for your organization, you can check your Sign into Azure status by clicking on Settings. Click View in Azure to grant the needed permission if not yet done. Click Windows Admin Center. Click Gateway link. Click Azure Security Center. On Setup Azure Security Center wizard, select Azure Subscription. Select Existing Log Analytic or select Create New Radio button and type the name of Log Analytic Workspace for use with Azure Security Center. Select Region for your Log Analytic resource. Select Resource Group or Create New Radio button and type the name of resource group. Notice pricing per node per month. Click Setup. Allow time for setup to complete. When setup is done, you should see Azure Security Center onboard successful message and list of recommendations, currently 0 for our host. Typically it take time for host to be analyzed and generate recommendations and overall security score of your environment. Notice after a while the onboarded computer has been analyzed and found to have one low severity vulnerability recommendation, and no alert associated with our computer even after refreshing. Under Recommendations, click on Vulnerabilities in Security Configuration on your machines should be remediated link. This will open Azure Portal Security Center with detail of security configuration to be remediated. This is yet another value of Windows Admin Center in making you Azure consumption easy and secure, that you have all necessary security recommendations on your fingertips. On Azure portal, go to Security Center. From the list you can clearly see the benefit of using Azure Security Center to improve overall security posture of your environment for both on-prem and cloud virtual machines. We have two Azure virtual machines, Windows and Linux, that we will use to demonstrate further value of Azure Security Center. Click Inventory. Click Add Non-Azure Servers. Click Upgrade. Click Add Servers. Notice option for downloading Windows and Linux agent and configuration parameters that include worst case ID and key for registering your other non-Azure server with Security Center. Just imagine the possibility of monitoring all your mission-critical system from one reliable Security Center service that can be coupled with the like of Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection for yet another Azure security benefit for your infrastructure. Click Security Center, then scroll down to Inventory. Notice Zero list of unmonitored virtual machines. Click Unhealthy link to see resources that need attention. Notice the monitored on-prem machine that was onboarded from Windows Admin Center. Back to Remediate Security Configuration. Notice list of failed rules by severity pie chart and number of critical, warning and informational recommendations result that include the common configuration enumeration ID, CID, and an explanation of the potential security impact. Click Recommendation link. Scroll down to the list of recommendations. Notice red bar on the recommendation items of concern. Expand item to see details. Notice Quick Fix recommendation option that will allow you to apply the fix immediately. Before you apply any fix, read the recommendations instruction that you understand the impact prior to apply the fix. Like in this case, we have recommendation to protect our Azure virtual machine by enabling just-in-time access. This will ensure RDP and SSH access is opened on demand based on setting we chose to apply. Notice on Remediate Vulnerability category, we have another quick fix recommendation and explanation of remediation steps. Click Remediate Security Configuration. Notice successful installation of monitoring agent and vulnerability in security configuration in on of the VM. Notice list of vulnerabilities with appropriate CID. If you have web app on your server, you will also see web app specific assessments. Expand details of restrict unauthorized network access. Click on all network ports should be restricted on network security group. Notice option for triggering logic app to apply desired configuration setting on associated network security group and any other desired security controls configuration settings as spelled out on the logic app. Expand Enable Azure Defender. Notice recommendation and quick fix to remediate Azure Defender concerns. Click on Virtual Machine. Click Connect. Notice we now have to request just-in-time permission. Click Request Access to allow temporary RDP access to your VM before downloading associated RDP file for connection. Note that with JIT in place, no one can RDP without requesting access, which keep your RDP and SSH more secure. Click Security Center Inventory Unhealthy link. Click on On-Premises Machine onboarded by Windows Admin Center. Scroll down to Recommendation List. Notice low finding on Vulnerability Configuration. Click on the finding for details and descriptions. Back to Inventory, select another VM. Notice 2 high and 3 medium findings. Scroll down to Recommendations. Notice quick fix options for vulnerability assessment, port management, and network traffic data. Click Remediate to enable Vulnerability Assessment Solution for VM. Click Proceed followed by Remediate One Resource button. Go back to VM and click Quick Fix on Management Ports of VM Recommendation. Review remediation descriptions and steps, then click View Policy Definition tab. Click Assign. Select Scope, Subscription and Resource Group. Click Select. Type Policy Description. Click Review and Create button. Click Create. Notice other recommendations include Azure Backup, which is important for recovery. Click on Network Port should be restricted on network security groups. Review description and recommendation steps. Click Take Action button. Note this: open network properties of the flagged network security group. Notice warning on the RDP security rule. We are going to modify RDP the rule and limit access from our public IP only. We identity our public IP from Google search what is my public IP. Click Save. Note that each remediation step will improve overall security. Don't forget to delete any lab resources you create while following along to avoid unnecessary costs in Azure consumption. In my case, I deleted Lab 101 RG that I used to place all resources to demonstrate Azure Security Center. Conclusion. We have seen and demonstrated how easy it is to configure resilient storage and compute on commodity hardware using free bare metal Hyper-V 2019 and Windows Admin Center. We have provided you with rationales to consider Microsoft Azure Cloud to modernize and improve your data center recovery options. We have demonstrated how easy it is to leverage Azure storage services on backup, file sync and VM replication and failover and migrate to Azure. Demonstrate the value of hybrid cloud on compute and storage where your on-premises integrate with Azure services. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe. Thank you. Reference.